I remember many years ago when I would go to a conference like this, I would experience two things. Number one, I'd be very inspired. I would begin to think, yes, I think it's possible. The thing that's in my heart, the desire of my heart to see the parish come to life, I believe it's possible. Because everything the speaker said spoke to my heart. It was like, yes. And I would get very excited. And then I would think of my parish and become very depressed. Because I would think, I don't know how to do it. How I see that it's possible to go there, but I'm over here. And I don't know how to do it. It seems so far away. First of all, as I've already said, parish renewal is a slow process. It does not happen overnight. It takes a lot of work and it takes time. And again, if it's possible for God to do it in a place like Halifax, in my parish, it's possible that it can happen in your parish as well. The other thing that I would experience would be my own deficiency, my own weakness, my own limitations, my own sinfulness. And all along in my life as a priest, I have had to learn about leadership whenever I encountered my own incompetency. It was the realization that I didn't know what to do that led me to go and try to find out. My second parish, I had 2 staff members. And the year following, my bishop gave me a second parish 1 mile away and said, I want you to make these 2 parishes one parish. And all of a sudden, I had a total of 6 staff members, and I had no idea what to do. I did not know how to lead a team. So I found a book by Bill Hybels called Courageous Leadership, and Father Emil showed me that it's available in Spanish. It's a very good book. And this was very helpful. And this was the beginning of discovering a whole world of experience and knowledge that exists out there under the task of leadership. Because like many of the priests here today, when I was in the seminary, we learned nothing about leadership, nothing. You know, we're ordained for the prophetic ministry, the priestly ministry, and the kingly ministry of Jesus Christ, to preach the word of God, to celebrate the sacraments, and to lead God's people, to be leaders. And in the seminary, I received almost no training on preaching, a little tiny bit of training on how to celebrate the sacraments, and absolutely zero training on how to lead. What did I learn in the seminary? Theology and philosophy. And I enjoyed the seminary, and I have nothing against formators in the seminary. We had wonderful years, but that essential task of leadership is something that I had to learn. And yet leadership is essential to priesthood. We are part of a hierarchical church. The church has been dogmatically defined as being hierarchical. Now, hierarchy does not mean multi-layers. It means led by priests, the hieros and archein in Greek. The church is led by priests. Leadership is essential to priesthood. In 2001, there was a document by the Congregation of the Clergy, and it observed that when we speak about the priest in persona Christi Capitis, we don't just mean when the priest is functioning in his sacramental ministry, when he celebrates sacraments, but also when the priest is preaching, when he functions in the prophetic dimension of his ministry, but also when the priest leads. When the priest exercises leadership, he functions in persona Christi as well. And yet we don't know how to do this, because we were formed in and for a maintenance church. Maintenance. Although today, many of our churches are indeed not in maintenance, they're in decline. I often think I should have called my book From Decline to Mission. Because even maintenance is hard work. And by maintenance, I mean maintaining the flock entrusted to our care, maintaining the people of God. That's a lot of work. Maintenance church, you keep things going, but the church is not going anywhere. Think of an airplane that's sitting on the runway, and it's been sitting there for months and months. And the passengers come once a week to sit in the airplane. And the pilot serves the coffee and serves the meals and greets the people and talks to the people and makes everyone feel good. And that's okay. The pilot can do all of those things if the plane is going to remain on the runway and not go anywhere. But if the plane is hurtling through the air at 1,000 kilometers an hour, do you want the pilot to be serving you coffee or flying the plane? The point is that we were trained for ministry in Jerusalem, and now we are in Babylon. We're experiencing a kind of exile in the church. And all of our training was for over here, and we find ourselves now over here. And we know that things are not working anymore. This is not about our doctrine. It's about how we live as a church. It's about our pastoral methodology. And there are several options. We can decide to be in denial. I just bury my head in the sand and pretend that everything's fine. Or often we will, to use an expression from blackjack, we'll double down. We say, okay, this isn't working. It hasn't been working. So let's do it even more. Let's double down, and maybe if we do the same thing again, but with greater intentionality, perhaps it will work. But of course, that's the definition of insanity, isn't it? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Another option is to decide not to care, to just stop caring. And sadly, there are many people in leadership in the priesthood who have decided not to care. They're just putting in time until they get to retire. And then there's people like you. If you didn't care, you wouldn't be here. You're here today because you care. You have that passion. You know that it can be better than this. And that's a difficult place to be, especially when we realize, I don't know what to do. When I arrived at St. Benedict Parish, I had been working at parish renewal for many years. This was my third parish, and I had made a lot of mistakes, That's the thing. When you innovate, you take risks. Some things work, some things don't work. I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, but we learn from those mistakes. And so I came to St. Benedict Parish with a certain amount of experience. I had read a lot of books. I had learned from other leaders, Catholic leaders, non-Catholics. I had tried things that did not work and did work. And so I arrived at this new place with a strong vision. I knew where we wanted to go. That was without question. This is where we're going. And I had a plan. I had a strategy. At least a bit of a plan. Because I knew what had worked in my previous parishes. And so I arrived at the parish and I had a team. And I said, okay, team, I'm the leader. Follow me. This is where we're going. Let's go. And we went. And the thing moved. By the third year, the parish had moved in that direction. And I was leading the charge. I was leading the team. Until all of a sudden I realized something. My plan had run out because it was successful. I now realized I don't know what to do anymore. And everyone's following me, and I don't know anymore. And I can't tell them that. I can't tell them I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Remember the movie The Lord of the Rings? And the character of Sam and Frodo, they're leaving the Shire. And Sam stops and he says, Mr. Frodo, if I take one more step, I'll be further away from home than I've ever been. This is what I experienced. It was like crossing the Atlantic Ocean from Halifax to Spain. And there's a point in a journey when you can no longer see where you came from. You can't go back. This is what I experienced in my parish. All of a sudden, we had moved into the middle of the ocean. I couldn't go back. I don't know what to do anymore. I've never been this far out. And it was very scary. And I felt very alone. And I didn't feel that I could tell anyone that I no longer knew what I was doing. Because isn't that the task of the leader? To pretend that you know everything? Right? I have all the answers. And when I finally was able to say to my staff team and to the other leaders of the parish, and be honest to say, I no longer know what to do. I need your help. That made all the difference. And that is the difference between leading a team and leading out of a team. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, leading out of a team. The first truth is there's no such thing as a well-rounded person. It's often the goal of formation, seminary formation, or the formation we receive in our families when we're young, to make a person well-rounded. I mean, as a child, if you come home with your report card and you have 4 A's and 1 B, typically, what do your parents say? You need to work on your B. You need to work on your weakness because you should be well-rounded. But the point is, there is no such thing as a well-rounded person. We're all warped. All of us. I am, and you are too. We're all unbalanced. We all have strengths, and we all have weaknesses. Sometimes people say to me, well, you have done these things in your parish, but I'm not you. I say, trust me, you don't want to be me. Yes, I have certain gifts, but I also have all kinds of weaknesses. And by myself, I'm not very good. Do you know what I do? If I was doing this by myself, it would have blown up a long time ago. Because my tendency is to go faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. Is to do more and more and more and more and more until everything blows up. I get exhausted, the whole parish gets exhausted, and the thing falls to bits. That's me by myself. I would never get this far. But with the team around me, it's very different. For instance, I am very strong with vision and with influencing people to move in a direction. But I'm not so good sometimes with people. And so in the past, in my life in ministry, I experienced that I can go in a certain direction, but what would happen is I would arrive, I can focus, and I put on blinders, blinders like this, and I can achieve things. I can go like this, and I arrive, and I turn around, and there's bodies all over the ground. And I'm thinking, what happened? And they say, you happened. And I realized that in my ministry, I hurt people. And I had no idea. Because I have blind spots. There are things that I don't see. I have limited vision. I see this, but I don't see this. And that's the truth for every single person. There is no such thing as a well-rounded person. But there is a well-rounded team. This is my senior leadership team. This is what we call it. They are all members of my staff. Currently, there's another priest. My associate pastor is on this team. He's not in the picture, but he's just with us for a few years. So there's 4 of us. And I have a total of about 20 staff in my parish. Now, when I first started, we only had 6, but we've grown. This is my senior leadership team. This is Rob. That's me. That's Kate, our director of communications. And Ron is our director of pastoral ministry. Rob is our director of operations. So Rob, he oversees all administrative staff and systems, anything involving buildings or systems or administration, he oversees. Kate oversees our communications team, and Ron oversees all of our pastoral ministry staff in other ministries, okay? And we have this is my senior leadership team, and I want to talk to you about the role and function of a team like this. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're saying, well, we don't have things like this. We don't have staff. We're not in America. We're not American. Only Americans do this. Well, I'm not American, as I said yesterday. I'm from Canada too. So, from Canada. So, I realize that you might not be in a position right now to have staff members in a team. I understand. But it doesn't mean that you don't need a team. Because here's the thing. If you are serious about beginning to lead your parish from maintenance or decline to mission, that means you're going to turn in a direction and begin to move in a direction you've never been before. You are not trained for this. You're stepping into the unknown. You're taking a risk. You can't do it by yourself. You're going to need help. Now, if you are determined not to become a missionary parish, if you want to remain in maintenance, you don't need my help and you don't need a team. If your church is in decline and you're committed to being with your church as it continues to decline, it will die all by itself without a team. You don't need a team. It will eventually be dead. But if you want to move in the direction of mission, you need a team. What is the function of a senior leadership team? It's a team that gathers around the pastor to help make tactical decisions. Tactics. I want to define a few terms with you. Vision is where you're going. That's the future that burns in your heart. That's where you want to see your parish. That's where you dream your parish will be. That's your vision. Your purpose is your compass. And your strategy is your plan of how you're going to get from this place to that place. What's your plan? You also need to take time to define your starting point. You need to know where you're starting from before you can make a plan. But as you journey along, there'll be things that you did not foresee. There are things that jump up in obstacles on the path, things that you don't know what to do. Those are tactics. And as you move your parish in a direction, there'll be things that you will have to deal with that you're not going to know what to do. Because if you commit to going on mission, it's not as if you can call the priest next door and say, "How are you dealing with this question?" He thinks you're crazy. Right? I mean, how many of you here today who want your parish to be missionary, how many of you do your brother priest think you're crazy? Yes. Hallelujah. Oh, I'm not allowed to say that. It's Lent. May you long be considered to be crazy. Because as we move, there are going to be decisions that will have to be made. Decisions that you're not going to know the answer to by yourself. And the team comes around the pastor to help him make decisions. Now, what's important here It's not about consensus. When you're in a consensus-based group, what the group does is continues to find the lowest common denominator on which everyone can agree. That is not the purpose of a leadership team. The purpose of a leadership team is to help the leader make the decision. If there's no clarity about what decision to make, it is the responsibility of the leader, the priest, to make the decision. But he's got to make the best decision possible. And that means he needs people around him who can help him make the best decision. In my parish, we meet once a week for anywhere between 2 to 4 hours. Now, I know what you're thinking. I don't have time for that. But leading takes time. I'm going to talk about this in a minute. If you're going to lead, it doesn't happen all by itself. Because as pastors, as priests, in addition to leading our parish, the life of the parish continues. 3 weeks ago, we had 6 funerals in 7 days. And in the meantime, everything is moving. And so there's the regular life of the parish, masses and funerals and everything else. Leadership takes time, and you have to make time for it to happen. The total numbers of people on a leadership team is a minimum of 4 and no more than 6. You need a minimum of 4 in order to have a balanced team. But if you go more than 6 people, it's too big to allow the kind of interaction that needs to happen. Now, some of you will recognize some of this thought. I'm basing a lot of this on the principles of Patrick Lencioni. Has anyone heard of Patrick Lencioni? A few of you have. I really encourage you to read his books. They are available in Spanish. And perhaps when you have this chair of pastoral studies here, one of the things can be a focus on leadership. And I spoke to one of my Portuguese brothers, and they're forming a university course to help priests learn leadership. Patrick Lencioni is an American. He is a very strong Catholic who has a great love for priests. And he's written these wonderful books on organizational leadership and how teams can function well. 4 non-negotiables of a senior leadership team. So when you're forming a team, here's what you need to get. Number 1, unanimity of vision. Number 2, balance of strengths. Number 3, healthy conflict and trust. And fourthly, vulnerability. And I want to take a few moments to look at each of these non-negotiables, okay? Number 1, unanimity of vision. Now remember, vision is about where you're going. And if you're going to gather a team of people around you to help you go in that direction, every person on that team must be on board with where you're going. What happens when you have 2 visions? You have division. I'm not sure if that works in Spanish, does it? It does, very good. Division. If you're rowing in this direction and the person behind you is rowing in the opposite direction, your canoe will go round and round in circles, or it might even tip. So the first thing you want is people who have the same vision. Those of you who are here, the parish priests here today with members of your parish, and if you're all passionate, if you get excited about the things that I'm talking about, then you have the same vision, and this is good. Because vision is about passion. The American pastor Bill Hybels says this, that vision is a picture of the future that produces passion in us. What are you passionate about? What gets you excited? When you talk about the future of your parish, if anything were possible in 10 years, what would your parish look like? Are you getting excited about the same thing? Because the thing about passion is you can't fake it. You can't fake passion. Either it's in your guts or it's not. You cannot intellectually give assent to a vision. If you say, yes, yes, I suppose, I agree, yes, I agree with the vision, yes. That's not on board with the vision. On board with the vision is like, yes, yeah, that's passion. And that's the kind of people you want on your leadership team who have that, yes, this is where we're going. That's the starting point, okay? You can't fake passion. Number 2, balance of strengths. This is very important because, as I said, not everyone has all the gifts. I don't have all the gifts. You don't have all the gifts. I have strengths here, but I have weaknesses here. There's no such thing as a balanced person, but there is a balanced team. I need to be intentional about bringing people around me so that my team will be balanced. And regardless of what tool you use, and in the English-speaking world, we have tools like Myers-Briggs. You have that in Spain? Myers-Briggs. There's something called the Berkman method, or there's a tool used by Gallup as well. So these are different tools to look and evaluate your strengths. And no matter what the tool, there are 4 basic quadrants, okay? There are people who are strong in executing, people who are strong in strategic thinking, people who are strong in relationships, and people who are strong in influencing. Now, this is a simplification, but all of these tools basically have generally 4 basic types of people. And in the church, the most common mixture of strengths are people who are good at executing, getting stuff done, and people who are good with relationships, good with people. Those are the personalities that predominate in ministry in the church. People who are good with people and people who get stuff done. But making things happen and having a plan is usually our deficit. And you need to have all 4 of these quadrants covered in your leadership team. Now, I want to show you a quick example of a tool that will help you determine which quadrant you're in. The opposite poles of being someone who prefers tasks over people, or your style of interacting with people. So I ask you, just think about yourself for a second. When you work, would you rather work on doing things or work with people? Are you more of a task person or a people person? So just answer that question for yourself right now. Don't think too hard. Would you rather be left alone to do stuff, or would you rather work with people? Okay, everyone got their answer? Yep? Okay. When you do work with people, do you tell them nicely or do you ask them nicely? You got it? So you have 4 quadrants. Have you figured out your quadrant? Yes? So the top right corner, the driver, is someone who is task-oriented and tends to tell people what to do rather than ask them what to do. Who finds themselves in that quadrant? Put up your hand. Just 2 people? 3, 4, a couple more? That's where I am. I'm that person. What about down below? You prefer to work with people and you tell them nicely. Who's down in this quadrant? Okay. Let's go over to this side. You prefer to work with tasks and you ask people nicely, analytical. Who's there? And finally, in this final quadrant, you prefer to ask people nicely and you prefer to work with people. Who's in this bottom quadrant? And everyone else who doesn't know, put up your hand. I was in Los Angeles 2 weeks ago, And there were 300 people in the room. And I showed this and I said to them, okay, now quickly get together with 4 people around you. And so 300 people divided by 4. There were about 80 different groups, 80 or 90 different groups. Just by chance of bringing 4 people together, only 2 of the groups had 1 person in every single category out of 90 groups. And the point of the exercise was this: just because you have a group of 4 people who are passionate about the same vision does not mean that you have a balanced team. Make sense? You have to be intentional about making sure you have a balanced team. And one of the ways you know you have a balanced team is that the people on your team will get on your nerves. Because for me, I'm very much the visionary person. I'm like, let's go, let's go, let's go. And Rob and Kate are like, wait a minute, we've got to work this out and this out and this out. And I'm like, it drives me crazy. You know, there's a tension, There's a tension. Or people will say, but you're forgetting, if you do this, you're going to hurt all these people. It's like, oh yeah, I never thought of that. So there'll be a tension because every member of the team sees a different part of the picture. Okay, so that's balance of strengths. Let me just move quickly here. I'm going to jump over this. The third one is healthy conflict and trust. You see, the magic of this is that because the people on your team are totally committed to the vision, that enables the team to disagree about how you're going to get there. And disagreement is good. It's good. Do you want to know why meetings are so boring? Who finds meetings boring? Just about everyone. Do you know why they're boring? Because most people don't say what they really think. All right? People just sit there and they don't say what they really think until the break. And then they say, can you believe that? This crazy guy's crazy. Oh, forget that. Or you go to the parking lot after the meeting. This guy's crazy. Who would do it? But in the meeting, no one says what they really think. No one disagrees. You see, in a healthy leadership team, you have to disagree. As the pastor, if I see you and I know you, Santiago, I saw you roll your eyes a little bit. I know that you don't agree with me right now. So not only are you allowed to disagree, you've got to tell me why. I want to hear from you. Even if I don't like what you have to say, I've got to listen. Because you might be seeing something that I don't see. And so you have to do you have to look for the conflict. You have to pull it out. You have to, if someone actually doesn't agree, you must speak. You must say what you think. And what happens is you've got 4 people who are very passionate about moving in a direction who will passionately disagree. In our leadership team, we have big arguments. Sometimes priests will come and visit our parish. Now, we don't really have time for priests to come and visit our parish, so please don't come and visit, because we don't have time. But a few times priests have come and they sit in on the meeting, and it's quite funny because they're like, they're shocked because one of my staff, they'll disagree with me. I'll come up with an idea and they challenge me. If something that we've agreed on, I'm not following through on, they'll challenge me. And sometimes it's very uncomfortable, and sometimes I might even get a bit upset or a bit defensive, and we go through it. But it's healthy conflict and trust. You see, when you have trust, a team is able to engage in healthy conflict. When there's no trust, it's not a safe place. And if it's not safe, you're not going to disagree. I mean, has any priest here ever been on a council of priests with the bishop? I mean, you want to talk about a dysfunctional team. The bishop sits there and blah, 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 and no one disagrees with. People are thinking, this guy's crazy. It's crazy. No one says it. It's like, zip. Yes, bishop. Yep, 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 yep. And then you go out and you think, and then you get together with your priest friends. This guy's crazy. He's crazy. You know, because no one says what they really think. You see, conflict without trust is politics. Is politics. And sometimes there's a lot of politics in our churches and our dioceses, and that kills an organization. Grace builds on nature. For the church to be spiritually healthy, it must be humanly healthy. And that means things like gossip and, negativity and resentment and unforgiveness is a very, very dangerous thing. And even in our team, when sometimes people get defensive a little bit, we always say, okay, stop. Let's work this out. Because we need to trust each other. This needs to be a safe place to disagree, because only then are we going to make the best decisions. And I've been doing this now for over 3 years, and it's been an absolute game changer. It's made such a difference. There is no decision as a leader that I have to carry by myself. Not one single thing. Everything in the parish I bring to the leadership team. And since I started doing it, we have been making better decisions than ever before. And really, 99% of the time, it becomes obvious what the right thing to do is. In the meeting, I rarely have to make the decision by myself. The final thing, I'll just show you a picture. This is Kate getting ready for a meeting, and that is a Nerf gun. We bring it and we put it on the table, and when someone says something that's silly, you get shot with the Nerf. The Nerf, we have a lot of fun. These meetings, they're the most fun, dynamic, exciting, challenging, and difficult meetings of the week. We're sometimes on the floor laughing, and other times we're in each other's faces disagreeing. We have whiteboards all over the room, and we write on the boards, and we're shooting each other with Nerf guns and writing. It's crazy, but it's great. It's so much fun. And this is a photograph. This is Father Simon, my associate pastor, and you see the Nerf gun right there, huh? We're serious about this. It gets used. Usually it's me that gets shot. I usually get shot with it. So these are our senior leadership team meetings. The fourth non-negotiable is vulnerability. Because there's no such thing as a Superman. By vulnerability, I don't mean that the senior leadership team becomes your support group or your therapy session. It's not the place for the leader to talk about all his problems. But what I mean by vulnerability is that it's okay to say to your team, I don't know what to do. Or to say to your team, I'm sorry, I messed up. Well, we have that kind of vulnerability. And I think right now with my own team, it's amazing because we're friends. We love each other. We truly love each other. I know that every person on that team would give their life for what they're doing as much as I would. And that's, in a sense, what enables us to have the disagreements that we do and to be challenged. And I'll just say, sometimes as a priest, it's difficult. Because sometimes I'll go into the team meeting and it's like, I have an idea that I really want to, if I was just leading by myself, I'd just make the decision by myself. But see, for many years, I led that way. I made decisions, and I didn't think of how my decisions impacted the other members of my team. I just made the decisions and said, deal with it. I'm the priest. And I realized I can't do that. I can't lead unilaterally like that. I need to listen to the members of my team. But even sometimes I might come with an idea and the other members will say, no, they'll disagree. There's a part of me sometimes that wants to say, I'm the priest. This is what we're going to do. But I know that as soon as I do that, I'll lose my best people. I tell you, priests who exercise leadership get the team they deserve. If you override people's input and ignore it over and over and over again, the people who actually have a brain, who actually have a heart, will go find somewhere else to serve. And you'll surround yourself with a bunch of yes people. Yes, Father, yes, Father, yes, Father, yes, Father, yes, Father. No, Father, no, Father, 3 bags full, Father. That's who you'll get. You won't get people who will say, you're wrong. You're being stupid. We need, as priests, we need people who can hold us accountable. We don't have wives, right? We need to be held accountable. And that's one of the things that a good team can do. So, there are many more things I could say about this topic, but we must move on. But I just want to review the 4 non-negotiables: unanimity of vision, balance of strengths, healthy conflict and trust, and vulnerability. I want to say something about the model of priestly ministry, because obviously, if we're going to think about moving in this direction, you can't just keep adding things. I mean, most priests who are good priests, who are passionate, you're already working very, very, very hard, and you can't just keep adding more and more and more without taking anything away. And many of us simply don't have time. But one of the things I like to invite priests to do is to look at your model of ministry. And I've got here 3 circles, or 3 ovals. Number 1 is preaching. Number 2 is sacraments. And the third is leading. And the big one is all other responsibilities. So think about the typical priest. What percentage of your time would you put towards these tasks? And remember, preaching the Word of God, celebrating sacraments, and leading God's people are ministries that are essential to priesthood. These are essential to priesthood. All other responsibilities are not essential. But for most priests that we work with, it looks something like this. 10% of the time goes into preaching, 15% into preparing sacraments. Leading, I've put here 6%. Some of the priests I've spoken to said 0%, because managing or doing administration, that's not leading. Leading is when you help something to move from here to there. Management and administration helps a thing to exist where it is. It's not the same thing as leading. And so most priests have very little time in leadership, and most of the time is spent in doing a lot of things that, while they are good things, are not essential to priestly ministry. Someone else should be doing them. But again, we have a clerical culture that says Father has to do everything. He has to go to every meeting. He has to be involved in everything. But more and more we must move to focusing on these 3 essential tasks. And I often will say to priests, you fill out this. How does it fall? And I think an ideal is all other responsibilities 20%. And imagine a situation where 80% of the time and energy of the priest was distributed between preaching, sacraments, and leading. How does it all work together? I want to quickly show you the org structure, the organizational map of my parish. And I know that my parish is very different, but I just want to give you an idea of how it comes together. Do you want to see this or move on? Do you want to see it? Okay. All right. So let me just show you quickly. So these 4 teams are my parish staff. When we had 8 staff, we had just 1 staff meeting. Now we have about 20 staff. So we have broken our team into 4 teams. So we have the pastoral staff. These are staff members who do pastoral ministry, and the clergy staff, the priests and the deacons, and the operations staff and the communication staff. The only team meeting I go to is I go to clergy. That's all I go to. This one is led by another staff member, and so is the pastoral, and so is the operations. And the head of these three teams are in the senior leadership team. We meet once a week. All the staff come together once a month. So the only time we all meet is once a month. And the purpose of this meeting is to remind people about the vision. It's focused on the vision as opposed to strategy or tactics. This is what happens in the individual meetings. And finally, pastoral council is solely focused on the big picture. The pastoral council should not be the group that runs your parish. The focus of pastoral council is the big picture, 5-year plans. And just very quickly, the ideal members of your pastoral council, the focus should be big picture pastoral issues, dealing with the questions, where are we going? And how are we going to get there? And the people who are members of your pastoral council should be passionate dreamers and planners. Now, some parishes don't have pastoral councils, and even those who do often have pastoral councils that have a different composition and a different sense of purpose. And you can see that you can have a pastoral council that focuses on tasks or organizing or supervision, and the absolute worst is what I call the House of Representatives. You have a pastoral council that has representatives from all the different constituencies of your parish, and the focus is on themselves. And the driving question is, hey, what about us? It's oppositional, and it's a bit of a turf war. And this is very, very dysfunctional, very dysfunctional. We need to make pastoral council, regardless of the size of your parish, about the big picture. Now, I want to finish by saying this. You may look at a structure like this and say, this seems so crazy, so removed. What does this have to do with Jesus and the ministry of Jesus Christ? Well, let me just say this, that I think there are striking similarities between how Jesus structured his ministry and what I'm proposing. For instance, I said that a senior leadership team was a minimum of 4 people. How many times did Jesus take Peter, James, and John aside from the other 12, right? It's kind of like a senior leadership team. And then there were the 12. It's kind of like your parish staff. And then there was the entourage. Those were the women, mostly, who traveled with Jesus and helped facilitate his ministry. And in every parish, you have key volunteers who almost are like staff members. They give so much of themselves, and they help the whole parish function. That's like the entourage, the people who traveled with Jesus. They were not the 12, and they were not Peter, James, and John, but they had a crucial role to play. And then there was the 72. Those are like the ministry leaders in a parish. And then beyond the 72, there were the disciples. Those are like the committed members of your parish. And then finally, the scriptures say there were the crowds. And those are like the crowds that come to Mass, whether they're committed or not committed. So I think there are some similarities, and we can say that what I'm proposing is not entirely crazy. Many of you have asked, is there somewhere you can go to find more information? Our website, divinerenovation.net, it is only in English, but you can go there. There are video resources. We have a podcast. We have a number of other resources. We're also planning to have another conference in June 2018. I think last year we had, Anne-Marie, did we have one person from Spain? We just had, I mean, come on, only one person from Spain last year. We had about 18 people from Australia. So maybe next in 2018, lots of people from Spain can come. By the way, all this time with me has been one of our staff members from the parish who also works in the Divine Renovation Ministry, and that's Anne-Marie Simon. Anne-Marie, can you stand up for a second so you can give her a round of applause. Anne-Marie is a very crucial member of our team, and she works a lot, mostly in the Divine Renovation Ministry. You know, altogether, there's about 5 people who work in this ministry, and most of us have full-time jobs. So please pray for us, because we're seeing God do so much, and we want to help parishes, but there's only a few people in an office, and we're not a big organization. And so pray for us, that we're looking to get people who will help support this ministry so we can grow, and so that we can be connected with you. Because I'm hearing, I've met some wonderful people, and I met a priest here who's created a whole pastoral plan that's based on a lot of things from the book, and this is just very overwhelming for us. I had no idea you all existed. I would never have thought that a group like you would come to a thing like this. So we're very, very humbled by this, and please pray for us. Also, we have podcasts. We actually have a priest internship program, but you kind of got to be really good at English to come and be on an internship program, because we it's a learning program, but we also ask that the priest does some pastoral ministry in the parish as well. We also have a coaching network. Again, right now it's English language only, but we coach parishes in the process of renewal. We have parishes from Australia, from England, United States, and Canada in that network. So please pray. Our vision, our dream, is to see a model of a healthy parish in every single diocese in the world. And I believe that already there are healthy parishes emerging all over Spain. And when there is even one healthy parish in a diocese, at first, maybe some priests will be suspicious or jealous or whatever, but eventually your parish will be a blessing on all the parishes in your diocese. Because when people see health, they see what it's supposed to look like, and that inspires.